Have you ever felt a moment that seemed too precise to be random? A clock stopping at the exact second news of a tragedy arrived. A light flickering just before a loved one took their final breath. A stranger calling your name in a place you had never been before. These coincidences may feel small, but deep inside, you wonder, why did they happen and why now? Many people brush them aside, yet later realize those moments carried hidden warnings. They were whispers before a storm, shadows of something greater unfolding. As you listen, think about your own life. Have you seen repeating numbers, heard a voice when no one was there, or felt an unexplainable chill before a turning point? Don't dismiss it. Tonight, we will step into the mystery of strange coincidences that appear before near-death moments and what they might truly mean. These moments are not just accidents of time. They are threads connecting our world with something higher, reminders that destiny often speaks in whispers. Before we dismiss them as chance, we must ask, are these coincidences silent warnings shaping the path toward life or death? Let's uncover the hidden meaning behind them together. Coincidences versus signs I used to tell myself, it's just a coincidence. The traffic light turning red the moment I hesitated, the clock freezing at 11:11 when my heart pounded for no reason, the way a song played with lyrics that answered a question I hadn't dared to speak aloud. These moments felt small, harmless, until they began to gather, stacking like quiet stones at my feet. Coincidences, by definition, are chance alignments. But when they repeat, when they arrive wrapped in intensity, we feel them differently. The flicker of a hospital lamp at the exact second a monitor flatlines, the sudden silence of birds before an accident, the echo of a name whispered in an empty hall. Are these random, or are they signs stitched into reality by a higher hand? Think about it. Your body knows before your mind admits it. Chills across the skin, a tightness in the chest, a feeling that someone unseen is trying to speak. Scripture tells us that God often speaks not in thunder, but in whispers. What if coincidences are His chosen language, gentle enough for those who are awake, invisible to those who refuse to look? The difference between a coincidence and a sign is simple. Coincidence makes you shrug, but a sign makes you stop. Which one have you been ignoring? Historical patterns. When I first began noticing these strange coincidences, I wondered if I was imagining too much. Then I opened the pages of history, and suddenly I wasn't alone. Patterns have always been there, documented, remembered, whispered across generations. Take the sinking of the Titanic. Survivors said that days before the disaster, a handful of passengers had unsettling dreams about water rising in corridors or a ship breaking apart. Were these dreams simple fears or warnings dressed as coincidence? And centuries earlier, ancient texts recorded eclipses, sudden animal migrations, even the stilling of winds before great wars. Each detail looked like random nature, but later people realized they were signs of something enormous unfolding. I ask you, have you ever read a story in the Bible or in history where an event looked ordinary until hindsight revealed its prophecy? Jonah ignored the storm, yet the storm was not random. The people of Noah's time saw rain clouds gathering, but dismissed them. The truth is, our ancestors often recognized these coincidences faster than we do now. They feared them, respected them, prepared for them. But in today's world, we laugh them off, bury them under science or distraction. What if by doing so, we're blinding ourselves to the very patterns that were meant to save us? So, before you call it random, ask, what did those before me see that I am refusing to see today? Personal testimonies. I thought these patterns only lived in books and scriptures until I met people who had lived through them with their own eyes. A woman once told me that before her car accident, she noticed the same bird landing on her windowsill every morning, staring in as if waiting for her. She laughed it off until the day her brakes failed, and she swore she saw that bird again, circling above the wreck. Another man confessed that just before his heart attack, every clock in his house froze at the same minute. 2:47. He thought it was faulty wiring until doctors told him his pulse flatlined at 2:47. The chill in his voice when he shared that detail made my own skin prickle. I've sat with patients who described hearing their names whispered in empty corridors or smelling their mother's perfume moments before collapsing. These weren't hallucinations. They were coincidences too sharp, too intimate to dismiss. And each of them asked me the same question. Why didn't I pay attention sooner? That's the haunting truth, isn't it? Signs often appear, but we brush them aside. We tell ourselves, it's nothing, until it becomes everything. Which brings us to the deeper issue. Why do we ignore these warnings? And what role does our awareness, or lack of it, play in shaping our fate? The role of fear and awareness. I remember speaking with a man who admitted he always felt a chill in his chest before something went wrong. He told me, it's like my body knew before my mind did. Yet he ignored it, because fear convinces us to dismiss what we don't understand. How many of us have done the same? Maybe you felt it too. A sudden silence in a crowded room, a strange heaviness in the air, or goosebumps crawling up your arms without reason. Most people laugh it off, covering discomfort with a nervous smile. But deep inside, you know something is off. Awareness is a gift, but fear blinds us. We scroll our phones, drown out the whispers, and call them coincidence. Yet those who survive near-death experiences often confess that the signs were there all along. The question is, will we be brave enough to notice next time? Think about your own life. When did your instincts warn you, but fear or logic made you ignore it? If you're willing, share that moment below, because your story may wake someone else. And here's where it becomes even more real. These warnings aren't only mental. They speak through our senses, through sights, sounds, touches, even smells that strike us before a turning point. Let's step into those experiences together. You've stayed with me this far, and that means you felt something stir inside. Maybe a memory, maybe a chill. These stories aren't just mine. They echo in countless lives, including yours. Pause for a moment. What was the one coincidence that made you question if life was trying to tell you something? Write it down in the comments, even if it feels small. Sometimes the smallest story carries the loudest message for someone else. Multi-sensory experience. I'll never forget the night I walked into a quiet hallway and felt the air grow heavy, as if invisible hands pressed against my chest. No alarms, no words, only silence that seemed louder than any sound. My eyes caught the flicker of a ceiling light, buzzing faintly, shadows trembling on the walls. Something inside me whispered, "Pay attention." Near-death experiences often arrive this way, through our senses. People describe seeing a glow that no one else noticed, or hearing their name whispered when the room was empty. One woman told me she smelled roses moments before her father passed, though no flowers were anywhere near. Another recalled tasting iron in her mouth just before fainting, only to wake up in the hospital. Tell me, have you felt it too? A scent, a sound, or a shiver that didn't belong to the moment, yet it marked something unforgettable. These details are not random. They're the language of warning written into our very senses. And here's the part that unsettles me most. When our senses awaken, they're not just describing the world, they're hinting at something beyond it, which leads us deeper. What if these coincidences aren't natural at all, but spiritual messages carefully woven into our lives? Spiritual interpretation. When our senses awaken in those strange moments, when we smell roses, hear whispers, or see a flicker of light, the question that lingers is why. Science may call it stress or imagination, but deep inside, many of us sense there's more. Throughout history, people of faith have believed that God doesn't always speak through thunder. Often, He chooses the quietest paths, a still wind, a whisper, a coincidence too sharp to ignore. What we call strange coincidences may actually be sacred warnings, gentle nudges meant to guide us back before it's too late. I want to pause here and ask you, if you've ever felt a sign that touched your spirit, how did you respond? Did you push it away, or did you take it seriously? Sharing that story might help someone else recognize their own moment before they miss it. I've come to realize that coincidences feel random to the distracted, but purposeful to the attentive. They aren't designed to frighten us, but to remind us, you are not walking alone. A greater hand is weaving meaning into your days. And this leads us to something even more personal. Why certain people, at certain ages or stages of life, seem to experience these warnings more often than others. Let's step into that mystery together. Age and timing. I've noticed something striking. These strange coincidences don't always happen evenly across life. They often arrive in seasons, moments when our hearts are fragile or our futures uncertain. When I speak with children, they sometimes describe visions or dreams with such purity that adults dismiss them as imagination. Yet how many times have we heard a child speak of light, of angels, of knowing something before it happens? Could it be that innocence makes them more open to whispers from above? In middle age, people often encounter warnings tied to exhaustion, ambition, or crisis. The signs show up when we're rushing, chasing, forgetting to pause. A sudden illness, a repeated number on the clock, a series of setbacks, all aligning until we're forced to ask, is this random, or is someone telling me to slow down? And the elderly? Many describe heightened sensitivity, smelling familiar scents, hearing voices of loved ones, or seeing glimpses of light near the end of life. These moments feel less like fear and more like preparation, as if heaven is gently opening a door. Think about your own stage of life. Do you recall a coincidence that felt like a mirror showing you where you truly stood? Which leads us to the next question. If coincidences arrive as warnings at different ages, how should we respond when they come? How to respond. The hardest part is not noticing coincidences. It's deciding what to do with them. I've ignored plenty myself, brushing them off as random, only to regret later. Over time, I learned that the right response is not fear, but attention. When a strange coincidence happens, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what is this moment trying to tell me? Sometimes it's as simple as slowing down before stepping into traffic. Other times it's deeper, urging you to mend a relationship, to pray, to reflect. I often tell people to keep a journal. Write down repeating numbers, unusual dreams, or unexplainable feelings. Patterns reveal themselves when we give them space. And if your spirit stirs, don't ignore it. Speak with someone you trust or take it into prayer. Many testimonies begin with a small decision to listen. Let me ask you, when life nudged you with a warning, did you act or turn away? Your answer might guide not only your future, but someone else's. Share it below. Your words could be the sign another person needs tonight. Because coincidences aren't just moments to observe, they're invitations. And how we answer may shape the road ahead, leading us safely through or leaving us blind to what's coming. I once sat with a young man who had survived a near-fatal motorcycle crash. Days before, he told me, his dreams were filled with flashing headlights and the sound of brakes. He shrugged them off. Then, on the night of the accident, he swore the streetlights along his path blinked out one by one, as if guiding him into darkness. He woke up in the hospital, broken but alive, realizing the coincidences had been warnings he ignored. His story still chills me, not because of the crash, but because of how clearly the signs had spoken. If only he had listened. Strange coincidences. Some call them chance, others superstition. But as we've seen, from history's patterns to personal testimonies to whispers through our senses, they are more than accidents of time. They are messages, sometimes gentle, sometimes urgent, always asking us to pay attention. I've come to believe that coincidences are the quiet handwriting of God across our days. They arrive in numbers on clocks, in voices that echo when no one stands nearby, in scents that linger without a source. They appear to children in dreams, to the weary in midlife, to the elderly in moments of silence. And always, they invite the same response. Listen, reflect, act. Maybe you've dismissed them before. Maybe fear or logic convinced you to laugh them off. But tonight, let's not ignore the whispers. What if that repeating number, that sudden chill, that unexpected alignment is not meaningless at all? What if it's heaven's way of saying, I'm still here, I'm guiding you? I want to leave you with this thought. The greatest danger is not that coincidences happen. It's that we walk past them, blind and hurried. But the greatest gift is realizing they're not random. They are reminders that you are seen, known, and loved, even in your most fragile moments. And here's my invitation. Don't keep this message to yourself. Share this video with someone who has been ignoring the small signs in their life. You may be the very signal they need. And in the comments, write, I will listen. Because when we start listening, coincidences transform into guidance and warnings turn into hope.